Every banana you have ever eaten is a clone. Not similar, not a close relative. A clone, genetically identical to billions of other bananas on every shelf in every country on every continent where humans buy fruit. And right now, a fungus is spreading across the earth that could wipe every single one of them out. Not in a century, not in 50 years, possibly within your lifetime. But here's what almost nobody knows. This has already happened before. The banana you eat today is not the banana your grandparents ate. That banana is gone, extinct from commercial production, erased. And the story of how it disappeared and what replaced it is one of the strangest, darkest, most consequential food stories in human history. It involves ancient civilizations, secret trade routes, a corporate empire more powerful than most governments, CIA coups, fallen republics, a global monoculture gamble, and a fruit so simple, so ordinary, so cheap that you've probably never once stopped to wonder where it came from. You're about to. Let's start at the beginning, not the beginning of bananas in your grocery store, the actual beginning. Around 10,000 years ago, maybe longer, in the dense, humid highlands of what is now Papua New Guinea, something remarkable happened. Long before wheat was cultivated in the Fertile Crescent, long before rice paddies appeared in China, long before corn was domesticated in Mesoamerica, some unnamed person in a tropical forest, looked at a wild plant with hard, seed-filled, nearly inedible fruit, and decided to cultivate it. Think about that. The banana is one of the oldest cultivated crops in human history. Some archaeologists believe it may be the oldest. Evidence from the Cook Swamp archaeological site in Papua New Guinea, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, suggests banana cultivation dating back at least 7,000 years, possibly as far back as 8,000 BCE. That means humans were farming bananas before the Egyptians built the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before the invention of the wheel, before writing, before bronze, before civilization as we typically define it. But here's the thing that makes this even more extraordinary. Wild bananas are almost nothing like the fruit you know. Wild bananas, Musa acuminata and Musa balbisiana, are small, tough, and packed with large, hard, black seeds. You could barely eat one, you certainly wouldn't enjoy it. The flesh is minimal, the taste is unremarkable. So how did we get from that to the soft, sweet, seedless, bright yellow fruit sitting on your kitchen counter? The answer is a genetic accident and thousands of years of patient human selection. At some point in the deep past, a mutation occurred. Some banana plants produced fruit with no viable seeds, a condition called parthenocarpy. The fruit developed without pollination. The seeds shriveled into those tiny, almost invisible specks you sometimes see inside a banana, and the flesh became softer, sweeter, more abundant. Now, a seedless fruit is a miracle for eating, but it creates a profound biological problem. If a plant produces no seeds, how does it reproduce? It can't, not sexually, not through the normal botanical process. The only way to grow a new banana plant from a seedless banana is to take a cutting, a piece of the root system called a sucker or corm, and plant it elsewhere. Every new banana plant is a genetic copy of its parent. Every single one. This means that from the very beginning, from that first moment, an ancient farmer in Papua New Guinea replanted a cutting from a mutant seedless banana. Every banana of that variety has been a clone, an unbroken chain of identical genetic material stretching across millennia. And that single fact, that beautiful, convenient, dangerous fact, is the thread that connects everything, every triumph, every catastrophe, every chapter of this story. Remember it, we'll come back to it. For thousands of years, the banana was a secret of the tropics. It spread slowly, island to island, coast to coast, carried by the hands of migrating peoples across Southeast Asia and the Pacific. By around 3000 BCE, banana cultivation had reached the Philippines and Indonesia. By 2000 BCE, it had arrived in India, and this is where the banana's story takes its first major turn. In India, the banana became something more than food. It became sacred. Ancient Hindu texts reference the banana. In some traditions, it was called Kadali, and the banana plant was associated with fertility, prosperity, and the goddess Lakshmi. Banana leaves were used as plates in ceremonial feasts, a practice still alive today. The entire plant was considered auspicious. Nothing was wasted. The flower, the stem, the leaves, the fruit, every part had a purpose. Buddhist texts from the Pali Canon, dating to the 5th and 6th centuries BCE, also mention the banana. Some scholars believe the banana, not the apple, may be the original fruit of paradise referenced in various ancient texts. In fact, the scientific name for one common banana species is Musa paradisiaca, literally, the fruit of paradise. Could the banana be the forbidden fruit? It's an open question. Some medieval Islamic scholars believed it was. Some early European travelers to India thought so too. We'll never know for certain. But it's a possibility that has haunted botanical history for centuries. Now back to the journey. From India, the banana traveled west. Arab traders carried it across the Indian Ocean to the eastern coast of Africa, likely between 500 and 1000 CE. From the coast, it migrated inland, transforming African agriculture and diet in ways that are still visible today. In Uganda, the cooking banana, the mattock, became a dietary staple so central to culture that the word for food in some Ugandan languages is essentially the same as the word for banana. Think about that. A fruit from Papua New Guinea became so important in East Africa that it became the word for food itself. Meanwhile, Arab traders also carried the banana north and west to the Middle East to the Mediterranean fringe, and it was during the medieval Islamic Golden Age that the banana got its modern name. The word banana likely derives from the Arabic word banan, meaning finger, because a single banana resembles a finger and a bunch resembles a hand. You've heard the term a hand of bananas. That's not a metaphor, that's the original name. By the time the Portuguese arrived on the West African coast in the 15th and 16th centuries, the banana was well established. And the Portuguese did what empires do, they took it with them. They carried banana plants to the Canary Islands, from there to the Caribbean, and from the Caribbean to Central and South America. And that's when everything changed. For most of its history, the banana was a local fruit, grown where it was eaten, traded in small quantities, too fragile, too perishable to transport across oceans. But in the late 19th century, two things happened that turned the banana from a tropical curiosity into a global commodity. First, refrigerated shipping. The development of steamships with cold storage in the 1870s and 1880s meant that perishable tropical fruit could survive the journey from Central America to the ports of New Orleans, New York, and Boston. Second, a handful of ambitious, ruthless businessmen realized there was a fortune waiting in the jungle. Enter Minor Cooper Keith. Keith was an American railroad builder in Costa Rica in the 1870s. He had been contracted to build a railroad from the capital, San Jose, to the Caribbean port of Limon. It was brutal work. The jungle was dense, disease was rampant. Workers died by the thousands, many of them imported laborers from Jamaica, China, and Italy. Keith's own brothers died during the construction. But Keith had a problem beyond the human cost. The railroad was hemorrhaging money. He needed cargo, something to ship on the trains to justify their existence. So he planted bananas along the railroad tracks. And it worked spectacularly. By the 1890s, Keith was shipping bananas to the United States in enormous quantities. And in 1899, he merged his operations with the Boston Fruit Company to create a new corporation. It's named the United Fruit Company. If you've never heard of the United Fruit Company, you are about to understand why it matters. Because for the next 6 decades, this single corporation would become one of the most powerful, most feared, and most destructive private enterprises in the history of the Western Hemisphere. United Fruit didn't just sell bananas, it owned countries. Across Central America and the Caribbean, Guatemala, Honduras, Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Cuba, United Fruit acquired massive tracts of land. Not just farms, everything. It owned the railroads, it owned the ports, it owned the telegraph lines, it owned the housing the workers lived in. It owned the stores where workers bought their food, often with company-issued scrip instead of real currency. It built its own postal system, its own radio network, its own shipping fleet, the Great White Fleet, one of the largest private navies in the world. And it controlled the governments. United Fruit executives routinely installed, bribed, or manipulated politicians across Latin America. If a government passed labor laws that threatened profits, higher wages, land reform, the right to unionize, United Fruit used every tool available to crush it. Propaganda, economic pressure, political manipulation, and when those failed, violence. This is where the term Banana Republic comes from. It was coined by the American writer O. Henry in 1904, in a novel called Cabbages and Kings, set in a fictional Central American country transparently based on Honduras. A banana republic wasn't a clothing store, it was a warning. a description of a nation whose economy and government had been captured by a single foreign corporation, a country that existed not for its own people, but for the export of a single crop controlled by foreign interests. And the most devastating example of this came in 1954. In Guatemala, a democratically elected president named Jacobo Arbenz had launched an ambitious program of land reform. Guatemala was a deeply unequal society. A tiny elite and United Fruit owned the vast majority of the arable land. Most of it was unused. Arbenz wanted to redistribute uncultivated land to poor farmers. United Fruit was furious. The company owned over 550,000 acres of land in Guatemala, and it was using less than 15% of it, but it didn't want to give up a single acre. So United Fruit lobbied the U.S. government. It framed Arbenz, a moderate social democrat, as a communist. It helped orchestrate a public relations campaign to convince the American press and public that Guatemala was becoming a Soviet satellite state. And in June 1954, the CIA, working closely with United Fruit, orchestrated a coup. Arbenz was overthrown. A military dictatorship was installed, and Guatemala descended into a civil war that would last 36 years, killing an estimated 200,000 people, the majority of them indigenous Maya civilians. Also, an American company could keep selling cheap bananas. Let me say that again slowly because it deserves to be heard. A democratically elected government was overthrown. Hundreds of thousands of people died in the ensuing decades of military dictatorship and civil war. Indigenous communities were subjected to what a UN Truth Commission later classified as genocide. Because of a banana company. This is not conspiracy theory. This is not exaggeration. This is documented, declassified, verified history. The CIA's own internal histories acknowledge the operation. The State Department has published the diplomatic cables. The Truth Commission's findings are public record. And yet, how many people know this? How many people pick up a banana at the grocery store and have any idea what that fruit represents, what it cost, who paid the price? The banana is the cheapest fruit in most supermarkets. In the United States, it often costs less per pound than any other item in the produce section, less than apples, less than oranges, less than potatoes. It costs less today, adjusted for inflation, than it did in 1950. How is that possible? How is a fruit grown thousands of miles away in the tropics, requiring constant labor, refrigerated shipping, and complex logistics, cheaper than an apple grown 50 miles down the road? The answer is the system that United Fruit built. A system of cheap labor, controlled governments, massive monoculture plantations, and a deliberate corporate strategy to keep the price low and the volume high, even if it meant treating workers as disposable and treating nations as subsidiaries. The banana didn't just change the world, it shaped modern imperialism. It helped write the playbook for corporate power over sovereign nations. It gave the CIA one of its earliest covert regime change operations. It fueled conflicts that are still echoing today. And all of it, every bit of it, depended on one particular banana. Her name was the Gros Michel. French for Big Mike, and she was, by almost every account, spectacular. The Gros Michel was the banana that built the industry. From the late 1800s through the mid-20th century, she was the banana, the only commercially exported variety. The banana your great-grandparents ate. The banana that launched 1,000 ships, literally, from the ports of Central America. And by all accounts, she was better than the banana you eat today. The Gros Michel was larger, creamier, sweeter. She had a more intense, more complex banana flavor. Her peel was thicker, which made her easier to ship without bruising. She didn't brown as quickly. She could sit on a shelf longer. She was easier to grow, easier to harvest, easier to pack. She was, in a word, perfect. And she was a clone. Every Gros Michel banana on every plantation across Central and South America was genetically identical. The same DNA, the same strengths, and the same vulnerabilities. In the early 20th century, a soil-borne fungus called Fusarium oxysporum cubens, commonly known as Panama disease, began appearing in banana plantations. It infected the roots of the Gros Michel, traveled up through the plant's vascular system, and choked it to death from the inside. The leaves wilted, the fruit rotted, the plant collapsed. And because every Gros Michel was genetically identical, the fungus could spread from one plant to the next with terrifying efficiency. There was no natural variation, no resistant individual, no genetic firewall. If one plant was vulnerable, every plant was vulnerable. Panama disease, later classified as tropical race 1 or TR1, swept through Latin America like a plague. Plantation after plantation fell. Entire regions were abandoned. The industry tried everything: flooding fields, burning infected plants, moving to new land, applying chemicals. Nothing worked. By the 1950s, the Gros Michel was commercially dead, not biologically extinct. A few plants survive in isolated gardens and research stations around the world, but as a global commodity, she was finished. The banana industry was in crisis. Billions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of jobs, an entire supply chain, ships, ports, railroads, ripening facilities, all built around a single variety of fruit that no longer existed. They needed a replacement fast, and they found one. She was smaller, less flavorful, more fragile. Her skin bruised easily. She didn't ship as well. She didn't taste as good. But she had one crucial advantage. She was resistant to Panama disease TR1. Her name was the Cavendish. Named after William Cavendish, the 6th Duke of Devonshire, who had grown the variety in his greenhouse in England in the 1830s, a curiosity, a hobbyist's novelty, never intended for commercial production. Now she was the last hope of a global industry. And so the entire banana world pivoted. Within a decade, the Cavendish replaced the Gros Michel on virtually every commercial plantation on Earth. New infrastructure was built. New packing techniques were developed. New ripening protocols were established because the Cavendish, unlike the Gros Michel, is picked green and ripened artificially with ethylene gas in controlled chambers. The banana you buy today has been gassed. That perfect yellow color, that uniform ripeness, it's engineered. The Cavendish is harvested hard and green, shipped across oceans in refrigerated containers, and then exposed to ethylene in industrial ripening rooms to trigger the color change and softening you associate with a ripe banana. It's a manufacturing process as much as an agricultural one. And here's the eerie part. If you've ever tasted artificial banana flavoring in candy, in milkshakes, in popsicles, you might have noticed that it doesn't taste quite like a real banana. It tastes different, stronger, more pungent, almost too banana-y. That's because artificial banana flavoring was developed in the era of the Gros Michel. It was based on her flavor profile, specifically a compound called isomyl acetate, which was more prominent in the Gros Michel than in the Cavendish. So when you eat a banana-flavored candy and think, this doesn't taste like a real banana, you're right. It doesn't taste like your banana. It tastes like your great-grandmother's banana, a ghost flavor, an echo of a fruit that no longer exists in the world you know. You've been tasting a memory without knowing it. But here's why this story isn't just history. Here's why it's a warning. The Cavendish saved the banana industry for a while. But remember what I said at the very beginning, the thing about clones. The Cavendish is also a clone. Every Cavendish banana on Earth is genetically identical. The same DNA, the same strengths, the same vulnerabilities. And in the 1990s, a new strain of Fusarium was detected in Southeast Asian banana plantations. It was related to the original Panama disease, but different, more aggressive, more resilient, and capable of killing not just the Gros Michel, but the Cavendish. Its name, tropical race 4, TR4. TR4 has been called the banana's HIV. It lives in the soil. It can persist for decades, possibly indefinitely. It spreads through contaminated soil, water, tools, boots, even vehicle tires. A single speck of infected dirt on a worker's shoe can doom an entire plantation. And there is no cure, no fungicide that reliably works, no treatment, no vaccine. The only proven strategy is prevention, keeping TR4 out of uninfected areas, and even that is failing. From Southeast Asia, TR4 has spread to Australia, to the Middle East, to Mozambique and other parts of Africa, to South Asia, to South America, the heartland of global banana production. In 2019, TR4 was confirmed in Colombia. The Colombian government declared a national emergency. Quarantine zones were established, plantations were destroyed, but the fungus was already in the soil. Scientists and industry experts have been sounding the alarm for years. Some have called it bananapocalypse, a dramatic name, but the underlying concern is deadly serious. The global banana industry is worth over $25 billion annually. Bananas are the world's most traded fruit. They are a critical source of calories and nutrition for hundreds of millions of people in the developing world, not just as a snack but as a staple food. In parts of East Africa, South Asia, and the Pacific, people consume hundreds of pounds of bananas per person per year. Not the sweet Cavendish cooking varieties, plantains, local cultivars, but they are all under threat from one strain or another of Fusarium. And the Cavendish, the commercial export banana, the one you buy, is uniquely vulnerable because it is a clone, because there is no genetic diversity, because the industry learned nothing from the death of the Gros Michel. We made the same bet twice. We took a single variety, we planted it across millions of acres, we built an entire global supply chain around it, and we waited for biology to do what biology always does: adapt, mutate, find the weakness. And biology found it. Now let me ask you something, and I want you to really sit with this question. Why did we do this again? Why did the industry, knowing what happened to the Gros Michel, replicate the exact same monoculture strategy with the Cavendish? The answer is economics: scale, efficiency, uniformity. Modern global supply chains are built on consistency. Every banana needs to look the same, taste the same, ripen at the same rate, fit in the same box, ship on the same schedule, arrive at the same ripeness, sit on the same shelf for the same number of days. Genetic diversity is messy. Different varieties ripen at different rates, bruise differently, taste differently, look differently. Consumers, trained by decades of marketing, expect a banana to look a certain way: yellow, smooth, unblemished, curved just so. Monoculture delivers that consistency. It's efficient, it's profitable, and it's a ticking time bomb. This isn't just about bananas. This is the logic of industrial agriculture writ large. We do the same thing with wheat, with corn, with soybeans, with rice. We narrow the genetic base. We optimize for yield and uniformity. We trade resilience for efficiency. And then we act surprised when a single pathogen threatens the whole system. The Irish potato famine of the 1840s, caused by the failure of a single potato variety, the Irish lumper, to a single pathogen, Phytophthora infestans, killed over 1 million people and forced another million to emigrate. The southern corn leaf blight of 1970 destroyed 15% of the U.S. corn crop in a single season, because nearly all commercial corn shared the same genetic vulnerability. We keep making this mistake, and the banana is the purest, most vivid, most devastating example. Because we're not just risking a crop, we're risking the most popular fruit on Earth. More bananas are consumed globally than apples and oranges combined. In the United States alone, the average person eats over 27 pounds of bananas per year. In many developing nations, the figure is 10 times that. And right now, scientists are racing to find a solution. Some are trying to breed resistant varieties, crossing wild bananas with commercial ones to introduce genetic diversity. But banana breeding is extraordinarily difficult. The Cavendish is sterile. It produces no seeds. Breeding requires complex, labor-intensive techniques, and results take years, sometimes decades. Others are turning to genetic engineering. Researchers in Australia and elsewhere have developed genetically modified Cavendish bananas with resistance to TR4, using genes from wild banana species. The results are promising, but GMO bananas face massive regulatory and public acceptance hurdles, particularly in Europe and parts of Asia. Some researchers are exploring biocontrol, using beneficial soil microbes to suppress Fusarium. Others are looking at CRISPR gene editing to introduce resistance without adding foreign genes. But none of these solutions are ready at scale, and TR4 is still spreading. The clock is ticking. And the banana on your counter, that cheap, convenient, seemingly eternal fruit, may be living on borrowed time. Let's step back from the crisis for a moment. Let's talk about what the banana is beyond commodity, beyond industry, beyond geopolitics. Because the banana is one of the most remarkable organisms on Earth, and almost nobody appreciates it. First, the banana plant is not a tree, it's an herb. The largest herbaceous plant in the world. What looks like a trunk is actually a pseudostem, a tightly packed cylinder of leaf sheaths. The real stem is underground. The plant grows rapidly, sometimes producing fruit within 9 to 12 months of planting, and then dies. But before it dies, it sends up suckers from its root system, clones, and the cycle begins again. A banana plantation is, in a very real sense, a single organism, or rather, a colony of identical organisms endlessly replicating, endlessly producing. Second, the banana is one of the most nutritionally efficient foods on Earth. A single medium banana contains about 105 calories, 27 grams of carbohydrates, 3 grams of fiber, and significant amounts of potassium, vitamin B6, vitamin C, and magnesium. It's nature's energy bar, prepackaged, portable, requiring no preparation, no cooking, no utensils. It comes in its own biodegradable wrapper. There is a reason bananas are the go-to fuel for athletes, from marathon runners to tennis players. The combination of fast-release and slow-release sugars, glucose, fructose, and sucrose, provides both immediate and sustained energy. The potassium helps prevent muscle cramps. The fiber aids digestion. In terms of calories per acre, bananas are one of the most productive food crops on the planet, far more efficient than wheat, rice, or corn. This is why they are a staple food in the tropics, not just a snack. For billions of people, the banana is not a luxury. It is survival. Third, and this is the part that always amazes me, there are over 1,000 varieties of banana in the world. 1,000. You know one, maybe two if you've encountered plantains, but there are bananas that taste like strawberries, bananas that taste like vanilla ice cream, bananas that are red, bananas that are blue, bananas the size of your finger, bananas as long as your forearm. There are bananas that can only be eaten cooked, starchy, firm, more like a potato than a fruit. These are the bananas that feed much of Africa and Southeast Asia, fried, boiled, mashed, fermented into beer and wine. In Uganda, a traditional banana beer called Tonto is brewed from a specific variety of cooking banana that you will never see in a Western supermarket. In the Philippines, banana ketchup is a national condiment, invented during World War II when tomato shortages led Filipino food scientist Maria Orosa to create a ketchup substitute from the abundant local bananas. It's still wildly popular today. Red-dyed, sweet-tangy, and completely delicious. In India, the banana flower, the large, purple, tear-shaped bud that hangs from the end of a banana bunch, is a prized vegetable. Sliced, soaked, and cooked into curries, salads, and stir-fries. In Kerala, banana chips fried in coconut oil are a beloved snack. In Japan, banana fiber extracted from the pseudostem has been used for centuries to weave a delicate, lustrous textile called bashifu. It's used for traditional Okinawan kimonos and is considered a cultural treasure. The banana leaf is used across the tropics as a plate, a wrapping for steamed food, a roofing material, and even a surface for writing. In South Indian tradition, a feast served on a banana leaf is considered the highest form of hospitality. Every part of the banana plant, every single part, has been used by humans: fruit, flower, leaf, stem, fiber, root, even the sap, which has been used as a dye, a medicine, and an adhesive. We look at the banana and see a simple yellow fruit, but for most of human history in most of the world, the banana was an entire ecosystem of utility, a single plant that provided food, fiber, medicine, shelter, ceremony, and culture. We reduced it to a commodity, we narrowed it to one variety, we made it cheap and uniform and forgettable. And in doing so, we lost something extraordinary. Before we close, let me share a few more stories, because the banana, for all its darkness, is also a source of genuine wonder. Did you know that bananas are slightly radioactive? It's true. Bananas contain potassium, and a small fraction of natural potassium is the radioactive isotope potassium-40. Scientists have even created an informal unit of radiation measurement called the banana equivalent dose, the amount of radiation exposure you get from eating one banana. It's about 0.1 microsieverts, completely harmless. You'd need to eat about 35 million bananas in a single sitting to receive a lethal dose of radiation. So, maybe stop at 34 million. Did you know that the inside of a banana peel can shine leather shoes? The oils and potassium in the peel create a natural polish. Rub, buff, and shine. It works surprisingly well. Did you know that bananas float in water? Their density is lower than water's, which makes them one of the few fruits that naturally float. This is actually part of their wild dispersal strategy. Banana seeds in the wild could float downstream to colonize new riverbanks. Did you know that the banana split, that iconic American dessert, was invented in 1904 by a 23-year-old pharmacist named David Evans Strickler in Lathrop, Pennsylvania? He charged 10 cents, twice the price of any other sundae in his shop. It was considered outrageously expensive. Today, adjusted for inflation, that would be about $3.30, still cheaper than most desserts at a chain restaurant. Did you know that in 2019, an Italian artist named Maurizio Cattelan duct-taped a banana to a wall at Art Basel Miami and called it Comedian? It sold for $120,000. A second edition sold for $150,000. Then a performance artist walked up, peeled the banana off the wall, and ate it. Cattelan wasn't upset. He said the banana was replaceable. The concept was the art. A $120,000 banana eaten in 10 seconds. There might be no better metaphor for the strange relationship humans have with this fruit. We worship it, we exploit it, we take it for granted. We occasionally duct tape it to a wall and pretend it means something profound. And maybe it does. So where does this leave us? Let me try to pull the threads together, because I think the banana has something to teach us, something that goes far beyond agriculture or economics or even history. The banana teaches us about fragility disguised as abundance. We live in a world that feels stable. You walk into a grocery store and the shelves are full. The bananas are there, they're always there. Yellow, perfect, 99 cents a pound. It feels permanent. It feels like it could never change. But it's not permanent, it's a system. A complex, interconnected, vulnerable system held together by logistics, labor, chemistry, and a genetic gamble that could unravel at any moment. The banana is abundant because it's fragile, because monoculture produces enormous yields right up until the moment it collapses. The banana teaches us about the cost of cheap things. That banana costs you almost nothing at the register, but the true cost is paid somewhere else. By workers in Ecuador earning a few dollars a day, by communities in Central America still living with the political legacy of banana imperialism, by ecosystems devastated by monoculture, pesticide runoff, and deforestation, by the genetic diversity we sacrificed on the altar of uniformity. Every cheap thing has a hidden price. The banana just makes it more visible than most. The banana teaches us about the arrogance of control. We looked at a wild, diverse, resilient organism and said, we can do better. We eliminated the seeds. We selected for sweetness. We cloned a single variety billions of times. We conquered the tropics to grow it. We overthrew governments to protect it. We built a global machine to deliver it. And now a microscopic fungus is reminding us, as biology always does, that control is an illusion. That nature doesn't care about our supply chains. That evolution is patient, relentless, and always finds a way. And the banana teaches us about what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore. Most of us have eaten thousands of bananas in our lifetime, and yet before today, how many of us knew any of this? The ancient origins, the sacred history, the corporate empire, the fallen governments, the dead variety, the looming crisis. We hold the banana in our hands and see nothing, just fruit, just food, just a thing we peel and eat and throw away. But every fruit has a story, every vegetable has a history. Every bite of food you take connects you to a web of human decisions stretching back thousands of years, decisions about what to grow, how to grow it, who profits, and who suffers. Food is never just food, it is culture, it is power, it is politics, it is memory. The banana is proof. So the next time you pick up a banana, and you will, probably within the next few days, I want you to hold it for just a moment. Feel its weight, notice its color, that smooth, engineered yellow, that perfect, familiar curve. And remember that you are holding a clone, one of billions, a fruit with no seeds and no future unless we change the way we think about food, about diversity, about the hidden costs of convenience. Remember that an entire variety came before it, sweeter, better, gone. Remember that empires rose and fell for this fruit. That people fought, suffered, and died so it could sit on your counter for less than $1. And ask yourself not just about the banana, but about everything you consume, everything you take for granted, everything that feels too cheap and too easy and too there to ever question. What am I not seeing, and what will it cost if I keep looking away? The banana didn't just change the world, it's still changing it. The only question is whether we'll change with it.